Right, Liz, we're live and ready to go. Hopefully you can hear me loud and clear.
I can, of course, definitely.
Jolly good. Well, welcome to the Sport Vlog. Really excited to have you here on board today.
I don't know.
I think you said to me, who on earth will find this interesting? And I said, well, I'll find it interesting for sure. And from my knowledge of you and the times we've got together and things, I'm sure that the wider world will be interested in Liz Norris as well.
You're very kind, but yeah, we'll see.
I am very kind. I've also did a bit of research just before we came on live on the vlog, and I can confirm that the certificate's on the way from the Guinness Book of Records for the person who's the quickest to get out of their pajamas into work clothing to have a Zoom meeting.
You don't tell everyone that, but yeah, I thought I might get away with having a lower camera, but I thought I best.
Don't worry. Don't worry. No, really nice to see you, Liz, and catch up with you. And like I say, it's an informal get-together. We're just going to chat a little bit of sport, and thank you for agreeing to take part in this.
Of course.
Like I say, I am super excited, but I'm also scared to death. And you're going to say to me, Adrian, why are you scared to death? But
I'm glad you know your place, Adrian.
Yeah, no, I don't know what it is. I think it's because I know you. What I've noticed in the not too distant past on social media is your adoring of Roy Keane.
You're a stalker.
No, I'm not a stalker, but I think in so many ways I'm thinking, and I apologise, but naturally I'm going to use all sorts of reference to boxing here, but you are a hard hitter, a straight talker, you're very articulate in what you do, and you certainly don't pull any punches. So that's why I'm scared to death, but equally why I'm really excited that you're on board.
Oh, well, yeah, thank you. I suppose the Roy Keane influence has become apparent, yeah, because that's probably how I describe some of the things about Roy Keane. But you're right, yeah, you've gone back in time there. Not that you've asked me, but Roy Keane was probably one of my first sports personalities that I really thought, wow. And not just because of his skills on the pitch, which is apparent to everybody. It's just his mannerisms, his tenacity, his bravery, and that straight talking attitude, and he gets shit done at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Love him or hate him, yeah. So I think I've adopted some of those sort of mentalities myself.
Without breaching too many secrets, the two main witnesses at my wedding, one of their siblings is going out with Roy Keane's one of the siblings, and I'm just thinking that'll be an interesting one to film.
Yeah.
I hope they behave themselves and get on well, because who knows? But I like you. I like listening.
I hope they don't behave. For your sake.
So does that mean in the football world that you're a Red? Are you a United fan by background?
I'll be really honest. I grew up, as you know, in the Republic of Ireland, and it was such a mix in terms of my family, my friends, my environment. And Liverpool was actually the prominent, I would say, team that was supported locally. But I grew up in a bar. We owned a bar from the age of 7 to about 18. So football was just always on, as was Gaelic sports. So I never really aligned myself to any one team. Now, call me a fence sitter. And as I have my own children later on in life, obviously, and they're big Red fans. My husband is a Bolton fan. My family support Liverpool Celtic. So yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I'm avid football supporter of any one team. I got interested in Real Madrid. If you've done that research for a while,
No, I've not found that one out. Tell me that story.
You have to go to yeah. When I was about maybe 23, 24, there was an Irish television programme, so RTE, similar to BBC here.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And they were doing a programme where it was about finding your hero. And I applied and said I'd like to meet Roy Keane. Now, by the time that the application process went in, I'd already met Roy Keane. So they said to me they'd really like to see if anybody could meet Zinedine Zidane, and would I like to go to Madrid? So it's like, no shit, Sherlock, get on there. So I had to do a bit of research for that programme, and I was flown out to Madrid, and I did meet Zinedine Zidane. And I did it by basically breaking into the training ground. I also met David Beckham and Ronaldo, Casillas, most of the Real Madrid team who were training that day. So yeah, because of the research I'd done for the programme, and just because I'm someone that says yes to most things, I actually became really interested in Real Madrid then and started following them and for quite a while. Yeah, so yeah, I just like sports.
I just can't compete with you.
Yeah, it was quite a mad story when I think back.
So it wasn't stalking the next question, but can you remember how you and I first met each other?
I think probably when I was working for a Greater Sport, County Sports Partnership here in Manchester, I believe we may have been connected through some funding that I was working on and some projects that you were working on to bring funding to communities. I think that's how we first met. Is that right?
We were both VIPs, apparently. Obviously, you're considerably more VIP than me, but we went to Leeds Sports Village for a volleyball tournament.
Yes, Mr. Burnham was there as well. His daughter was playing, that's right.
Well, I've already stitched you up by referring to your pajamas. So should I or should I not try to remind you of your, I still chuckle at the prospect of the caption that you put underneath the photograph of Andy Burnham when you saw him there that day? Or should we keep that quiet?
Do you want to share that?
No, I'll keep it quiet. It's not all, the program is not all about embarrassing you.
Yeah, I would do some work currently around Burnham's office, but part of that caption is true still, I believe, potentially the next Prime Minister.
Indeed. Who knows?
Yeah.
So volleyball was where we met in the first instance, and I'm pleased that I bumped into you on that day. Now, I'm not going to in great depths of research, but one thing I have looked at is obviously things like your LinkedIn profile. And I mean, I'm looking at it now as we talk, and your background, before we get into the detail of sport, is housing associations, issues of equality, social inclusion, etc., etc. What was it that took you down that as a career path?
Yeah, it's youth and community work is my passion, and community work. So all those things you mentioned links in. And I suppose when I moved to England from Ireland, one of the things I was quite active as a young parent at home was about creating better communities for my children, who were very small when I left. And I took that passion with me to Manchester, to Greater Manchester. I wanted to get involved and continue trying to help where I could. So initially here, I started working for the local youth services in Bury in North Manchester as a part-time youth and community worker. And we would do lots of physical activities, positive activities with young people through youth clubs and stuff. And the more I started to do that work and learn from my colleagues, I thought there's so much more that can be done to help young people, but you can't do it in isolation. So I continued to work with youth services quite a while, and youth offending team and child protection teams. But then my work started to gradually go more into working with adults who were vulnerable. And I currently work for a national charity shelter, working with entrenched rough sleepers and vulnerable people in the community. So I suppose all of those things linked together is about social inequality and how we are all flesh and bones and never know what's around the corner. And actually what happens as a child or as a young person, kind of a dramatic negative effect, or positive of course, but for those people later on in life. And often people will, go through a crazy amount of trauma and not actually get the help and support they need, or they might not even acknowledge it until they become adults. So anywhere on the spectrum of life you can do good is something, I know it sounds quite cliche, but I'm not happy doing a job, whether it's a paid job or otherwise, unless it actually means something. So even when I was working for sports organisations, it was social inclusion, so helping people who would not normally be able to access sports or physical activity or good health, to help those people. So yeah, all linked in. Where it comes from, I don't know.
Well, that's really articulate, and it's rewarding, but it's also very impressive.
Is it impressive?
I know you're not looking for applause or pats on the back, but it is very credible what you do.
No, well, thank you. And it's a nice thing to say, but I always, when people say things like that, is it impressive, or is it just what we should all be doing anyway? Helping others.
Good point. And in the different hats that you've worn over the years and different jobs you've done, you'll have got involved with a myriad of different sports. Yeah. But one of the key reasons I wanted to talk to you today was because of your prowess in the wonderful world of boxing. Do you want to share with the audience what your background was in boxing, how you got into it, what your background is, and if you can remember, which I'm sure you can, some of the stats in terms of your fights?
I can't remember them because there's not a lot. So the This Girl Can initiative, which some of your audience may be familiar with, is
absolutely Sport England.
Yeah, a campaign basically to get more women and girls active, and there's a massive disparity between the amount of females that are active and involved in sports. So initially, the boxing thing started with youth work, where I was doing some anger management type workshops, not for myself, although I could have probably benefited, how we could help young people with anger management through non-prescriptive methods. So I went to an introduction to boxing course that would allow me to be able to do some boxing activity, recreational, more fitness in the youth clubs. And I went on this course and I absolutely loved it. I got a buzz and I wanted to do more and more and more. So I decided I would join my local club here, which actually is just across the road, and I never really took much notice of before. I've always been active when I go to the gym. I've done loads of sports, but never really thought about boxing. So I went over and I walked in the door, and there was a guy there, and he's about 4 foot, and he was the coach apparently, and he was called AD Lewis, and he is an ex-professional. And he said, "Yeah, all right, yeah, just sign your name there, join in." I was a bit intimidated. I'm not one for shying away from male-dominated environments, because a lot of the time, unfortunately, in sports, you know, and working in a pub all my life, you get used to that, but it was still a little bit intimidating. There's maybe 25 people there, and there was 2 other females who were in their, I would say, late 50s, who also I could tell were a bit uncomfortable. Anyway, so we did the session, and at one point, AD, the coach, asked us to do press-ups, and he said, more to the room than to anybody direct, if anyone wants to go on their knees, they can do it if it's difficult. The guy behind me went, "That's where you should be, black women there." So the red mist came, and I just thought, do you know what, I can either react to this now or I'll deal with him later. So I thought I'll deal with him later because I like my workout. But in that split second I had that thought, AD, the coach, said, colourful language, basically told the guy where to go and to get out of his class. And that was the reason the reason females weren't here more often was because of people like him. So he said, get out. So I was really pleased by his reaction, that he, you know, had been to places before, and the banter continues. So I spoke to him after, said, "Thanks for that." And he said, "I'm not having it." He said, "I'd love to have more females, but I don't really know how to get them in. I feel a bit awkward sometimes myself, but with people like that, you just can't have it." And I should say those other 2 ladies never came back to the session, but I carried on. So I carried on going there for about 7 years. And in that time, the This Girl Can campaign started. And I helped with a steering group locally in Bury to understand what we could do. And I'm trying to make the story not too long for you. We set up female only boxing sessions in that club with AD. And they came successful. We had over 300 females that came through the door. And that really, by this stage, I was really like, you know, loving it, loving the sport, loving how fit I felt, loving that I was able to encourage other women. But we weren't fighting still, we weren't having bouts, we were just doing the fitness. And I thought, how can I get more females to get in that ring? I have to do it myself, aren't I? So at this stage, I was 37 years of age, and AD and Mick Haslam, my other coach, said, "Liz, if we didn't think you could do it, we wouldn't put you in there. We have a duty to protect you as coaches. And why would you start to run and train really hard and never have a race?" Which is a good analogy. So I thought, right, I'm going to do it. Everybody, including my own children who are now teenagers, were horrified and slightly embarrassed. But I said, I'm going to do it. So I got in the ring, I got my license, everything. I was 38. And I got on the ring with an 18-year-old. And I got absolutely battered. I think about 1/3 round, actually. Absolutely battered. But I left that ring with my hands in the air, like, yes, like I had won. Because I was just so proud and felt so good. And it was a bucket list. I thought, I'm going to do it once to show and to prove to other young females or any females or anybody that, you know, if I can do it, someone who's much older, and you know, I don't consider myself old, but definitely older in this game, then you can do it. Bucket list ticked. But that wasn't good enough for Liz. She decided I need to go again. And the new bucket list, she just wants to win one. So I thought I'll just do one more and win. If I just win one, then I could tick that off. So you can see where this pattern is going. Now at this stage I'm 38, and you can only have your amateur license until you're 40. So I decided just to milk it while I can. The difficulty, even now, but more so, I'm going back 5 years, is that there wasn't a lot of other females to have fights with, because you have to be matched equally, fairly with your weights and your experience levels. Your age doesn't really come into once you're 18 plus, then you're an adult. So I only actually had 5 fights in total. And yeah, I lost the first one and I won all the rest, and that was it. And my time was up. And it's something that I got actually really disappointed about, because I was probably the fittest I've ever been at 40. And I think I was at 70% of my ability. I think I could have been a bit better and done some more. But that's what it was. I just got the bug. It's an addiction, I think. It really is.
Well, I think some of the newspaper articles that I read, I think one of them was around a gym. I think it was the last fight at a particular gym or a venue, and it said that the fight of the night was you, and you had won there.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in as well is that, again, they always say you should never ask a woman her age, but clearly you just portrayed the fact that you started boxing quite late. Was that very unusual within the sport? What was the sort of feedback within the sport?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it was mad. It was absolutely mad. And actually, Ian Harrison, who is a very experienced boxing coach and ex-professional himself, and he's been in the game for a long time, showing his age, and he's a great guy. And Ian decided to set up a Northwest squad, and Ricky Hatton kindly gave us his gym every one day a month. So we have that one day a month, and it's for all females to come together from the clubs all over the Northwest, so that we can train together and spar together and have a sense of what it's like to fight with other females. Because like me, a lot of females are the only one in their gym, so they're sparring and training with lads, and you never really get a true understanding of where you're at and to kind of benchmark yourself. And Ian had just started that squad when I decided I was going to fight, so I think it was the second squad I went to, where my opponent was there actually, and he said to AD, my coach, when I went to the car afterwards, he went, "Don't leave her take that fight, she'll get absolutely battered, she's not ready, she's too slow, she's too old." And he was right. Or at least I done better than he thought, and he'll tell you that himself. But he was right, you know, because what good coaches do is they protect their boxers, and like any coach in any sport, you protect your students, if you like.
Yeah.
And yeah, so a lot of people said it, but what AD did, and make my other coach, is they knew me, and I've been going there for years, albeit not ever actually in the ring per se. They knew what was up here, and I would say this to any boxer. What is up here for me won the fight. I was never technically brilliant, I'm still not, but what I had was complete and utter sheer drive and determination, and my fitness carried me through because I trained every day, and I trained until I couldn't train anymore. I listened to my coaches, and I was mature in my approach, and I think that is, I won't say there's a difference for me, but certainly what got me through. I will never profess to be a really good boxer or technically brilliant or anything like that. I'm not. And it definitely could have been better. But yeah, your age has a lot to do with it, because it is a science, and it is something that takes years to master. So starting it so late, it's definitely a challenge, but not impossible.
I think I've asked you this before when we've been together, but are there videos of any of these fights online? Are they on YouTube?
I hope not. I've got videos. I've got copies of them all.
Right.
But it's not something I've posted. I don't know. I mean, normally what happens is the local clubs, whoever's hosting those shows, will video their shows, and they'll send them out to individuals. A lot of the time they don't go public because it's not nice for the person that loses. Yeah. And also just for different safeguarding reasons. So I'm not sure. I've got a copy of them all.
And then I now know, then another thing I know, but obviously I've met you first, but another person I met in the sporting arena fairly soon after meeting you was Gethin Jenkins.
Yeah.
So obviously Gethin Jenkins went in to be the CEO at England Boxing, had a wonderful pedigree because of his time as CEO at Cardiff City Football Club, but also Newport Dragons in terms of rugby. I'm guessing, if my timeline is right, that you must have been one of the first directors that was appointed to England Boxing after Gethin took over. Is that right?
Yeah, so Gethin and I attended our first board meeting together. So my first board meeting was his first board meeting, yeah. It was the next thing, I suppose, when I realised that I couldn't actually box anymore in a competitive sense, was to how can I carry on to continue everybody, but in particular females, to take up the sport, and how can I help the sport to grow and to get, I suppose, more recognition. And there is still that stigma out there that's dangerous and it's not controlled and it's not good for you, which you could argue is for any sport. So I got my coaching badges and I became a coach, and I started helping out my local club where I'd started, and also the female squad, which I just spoke about. But then I thought, what else can I do? And I did notice that there is still this dinosaur mentality of the males and females who don't believe boxing is any place for women, and that evolution just doesn't happen. It's just a standstill. And I was getting quite frustrated, so I thought I'll have to, like I did when I got in the ring, I'm gonna have to do it myself. So I applied for a board position, and it came about the same time as you rightly said, Gethin was appointed, and I was appointed onto the board, the third female and second youngest board member.
Well, that's an interesting thing that you're going into that. You talk about this word evolution, which I think is a good one. I think in recent years I've been working with probably 6 national governing bodies in sport. They've got challenges, and some of them haven't evolved at all.
No.
Me as an outsider, and you're going to say, Adrian, don't be stupid, or actually you're right. Me as an outsider, when I look at boxing, I think that in terms of things like the VAME community, that it is well represented. There's a good penetration of people. Sure, there's still more that can be done. But I wasn't aware. I was wondering, one of the questions I was going to ask you was, are you the only female on that board of England Boxing? But there's 3 now, you say? There's
3 now, yeah. So there was 2 when I started, and I became the third. And one of those ladies since has left because she's joined Sport England board, conflict of interest. So she's left, and she's been replaced by another female. So there is currently still 3 females on the board.
Good. That's positive to know.
Yeah. Still not enough.
Not enough. Still not enough. You're quite right. I mean, just as a general question before I move on, the whole issue of barriers to female representation, particularly higher up the pyramid of organisations, still prevalent?
Yeah, I think England Boxing have done, and Gethin's done a really good job actually.
Good.
Particularly of really thinking about this and proactively doing something, and not just saying, "Oh, isn't it a shame?" So we made history, and I'm really proud to have been part of that by having the first ever female tournament hosted by England Boxing in Manchester. So it wasn't down south either. So 2 things there, and we had over the first year like 500 entries. And it's just never happened before, and it seems really mad. Well, why wouldn't there be a female tournament?
Absolutely.
Because there wasn't enough boxers, or there wasn't the opportunities. So, albeit, yeah, there's like definitely. I mean, like I said, when we started the squads, when Ian started, I think there's maybe 11 or 12 females, and now we get 60, 70 that come on a monthly basis, and it's growing. So it's definitely, there are more opportunities, and female boxing is starting to be more acceptable. It's so far away still, so far away. Yeah.
Oh, well done to you. Yeah. And then the final part of the getting to know Liz Norris was that you never stop in terms of your community involvement, in terms of your community support, in terms of your volunteering. But one of your huge successes has been Street Shakers. You want to tell the world about what Street Shakers actually means?
The world. Originally, when I was youth working, Bury Football Club approached the youth service and said, we'd like to do something to encourage more females and families to get involved in the club. And at that time, I had a group of young women that we were doing some dance sessions with. And I asked, would they like to do that, to go and do some cheerleading and dancing at the club to entertain the children as well. So what the club recognised was at halftime, there wasn't much halftime entertainment, and some of the younger children got bored, etc. And you know, the mums and dads might go for a drink or whatever, or have some food, but the kids wanted to do something. So we said, yeah, we'll do some little dance workshops or entertainment. So it started with Bury Football Club, called Bury Shakers, the cheerleading squad. And then I just got inundated with young women saying, I'd like to get involved, I want to do something. So with my youth worker head on, and also because I teach dance, and all that together, I thought, oh, we can make this bigger. So I started doing dance sessions all over Bury originally. Then I left the youth service just because I changed jobs. And there wasn't anyone that was going to be able to take my place. So I decided to just do it myself, but I couldn't coach. I couldn't be in all those places at once. And I used to go into schools because it was my full-time job then, you see, so I could just spread myself. So I approached all the places, whether it was schools or community centres, and said, look, I can't be everywhere, but I've got a lot of these girls now that I've worked with for a long time, and they've hit 18, and if I train myself up to be a tutor, to be able to get them to be qualified and insured, will you be happy if they deliver these sessions, albeit they're just 18? Because to me, that's the best model, right? You don't need me. And a couple of schools said, yeah, no problem, once they're 18, you know, safeguarding, etc. So we did that, and that was 9 years ago now. You might research me, Adrian. And what's evolved is we now have I suppose, social enterprise where we train up young people if they want to. So we're not actually recruiting ever. So wherever we have sports sessions and dance, but predominantly dance, we have other sessions, and somebody wants to volunteer, help out, mentor them, take them on their wing, train them up, get them qualifications, get them assured, and then give them a job so they can go and start a new session. And what often happens is we'll get funded to go and deliver sessions in communities, and we send in one of those young people, young coaches, who have come through that sort of environment, if you like. So young people going back to where they came from and giving back to that community. Yeah, so it's just kind of naturally evolved into something more than just one session for the football club.
And what was it? I can't remember exactly, but there was something that happened a couple of years back. Was it a theft or was it a fire or something? There was a challenge, wasn't there, that you and I had spoken about at the club? Wasn't there a fundraiser that we did at one point in time towards a particular cause?
I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but there has been many.
Has there been many? Okay, don't worry.
For Street Shakers, sorry, I think what you're referring to is, yeah, so we don't do, it's not a competitive dance club. The girls do not do competitions. So it's all about community giving back. So they will do things like, yeah, when there is a fire and somebody's doing a fundraising to rebuild, right, we'll go and say, we're happy to put on dance displays, run workshops, do whatever. We do for Race for Life, cancer research.
Yeah.
We will go and do stuff for that. And whether it's local, often like it'll be someone in the community that says, you know, I'm having a fundraiser for somebody who's ill and we'll go and help out if we can. And yeah, so everything that we do was about performance or community payback. We don't do competitions. Okay. It's not non-commercial.
No problems. Couple of final questions, if I may, just finish up on. One of them was just the whole issue of women in sport. For any aspiring youngsters, teenagers that aspire to get into sport, particularly when you say there are still occasional barriers that might be down to male dominance, are there any recommendations that you've got for the up-and-coming young girls of the future in terms of both athletes and managerial positions in sport as well? Yeah,
I think it's very personal. So the barriers are different for different people. Sometimes it's because of that nature versus nurture thing, that might be that their family or their culture doesn't allow or recognize or approve people's choices. So that's something that is quite personal. But in terms of that feeling of intimidation or imposter syndrome or feeling of not being able to do it, I would just say to anybody, male or female, young or old, that who is it that you really care about what they think? Do you really care? And I say this to my daughter sometimes, who's in her early 20s. Something will be on social media, she's like, oh God, I can't believe it. I'm like, you won't remember that tomorrow. And I proved this to her and so many times, like, can you remember what you were freaking out about last week? Because somebody posted something or you were embarrassed by whatever. And she doesn't. And I feel for this generation because, you know, your whole life is out there. As you proved today, Adrian, you can find out a lot about people quickly. But always ask yourself that question. And that's what I do. Like, who is it that I actually care about? And for me, it's like my family and a very, very small, close circle of friends. And people I care about, and, you know, I have acquaintances like yourself. But do I care enough to be stopped? And usually, for me, when I do really care, and I get really, really, you know, I start to ruminate about it, that's when I think, well, I need to change it. Instead of walking away, I go, well, I need to change it. And then I say things like Nelson Mandela, you know, I inspire myself by just thinking, and I say Nelson Mandela because one person can change the world. One person can influence things. You have to start with yourself. And why would you not do it and look back and say, I should have, would have, I wonder if. And you'll often find as well, I know that person, I could have done that. Well, you didn't. So don't be that person that looks back and says, I could have done that. Be the person who everybody else says, I could have done that.
What a great philosophy, what a great mindset. And this is why you're on the show today. The last thing I'm going to ask you, literally the last thing, and if you look at Shakers and some of the social media promotion, one thing caught my eye, and this is one of the quotes that you've obtained and you put on there. It says, you don't stop dancing because you grow old because you stop dancing. Is Liz Norris still dancing? And what will be the next dance for Liz Norris in sport?
I'm always dancing. I never really set out with an intention. Things just happen. And like I said, when I start to get when I ruminate about things, I'll go, right, I need to do something about that or walk away. My husband's upstairs, so he can't hear me because it's often like, how much time do you have, woman? But I don't really have any big ambition to achieve anything. I do have regrets. You know, I would have loved to have done more in sport myself. But what I do want to do is I would hope by the time I die that we won't be having this conversation about more females in sport. It just is. It just should be. And you can say, "I'll be very kind to me that what I do is unusual or, you know, admirable," because everybody should just do that anyway. So yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. I hope it hasn't been painful.
No, not at all. Gets me off doing proper work.
But it's really nice to see you. I'm going to turn the recording off now, so I'll say cheerio to the rest of the world, and you can say cheerio to them.
Bye.
I'll just talk to you a
Thanks,
little bit
Adrian.
myself.